Check it out.
The official sponsor of Sends and Suffers podcast is Organic Climbing. Go to their website, use Sends and Suffers to get a discount on chalk bags, chalk buckets, everything they have on their website. And I will tell you right now, one of the reasons why I love organic is tried and true. Let me tell you, when I am falling from the heavens above on my highball boulder, I trust nothing with my ankles but an organic crash pad. Y'all know I love these things. I ain't gonna trust these things on nobody else. All right, I'm out of here before I go crazy. But holla at your boys because they help this podcast. And yeah, we just try to make sure it goes around, comes around. All right. Friends and enemies, lovers and haters, welcome to Sends and Suffers podcast. I am your host, Mario Stanley. If you haven't already, please follow, like, and subscribe to Sends and Suffers podcast. Every bit counts, and we would love to hear from you. So take a moment to leave a comment. These go a long way and help others know what they're getting into and how good this show is. If this is one of your favorite podcasts, consider becoming a Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you are investing in Sends and Suffers podcast, and it's like buying your boy a taco, hanging out, and getting to know the good that is coming your way. Monthly recaps, early show releases, and all the other cool things that we do. Thank you so much for listening to Sends and Suffers podcasts. All right, friends and enemies. Karl, the man, the myth, the legend behind Climb Tech. Now, if you do not know Climb Tech, that means you are not in the nitty gritty of the climbing industry. And if you're listening to this podcast, that's not really for you to know. You're here to enjoy. You're here to just ride on this vibe that I'm bringing your way. Now, what is Climb Tech? Climb Tech was the largest manufacturer of climbing bolts, gear, fall protection for a commercial and for climbing. If you've climbed in Mexico, you've climbed anywhere in the United States, you've probably seen them stamped on those hangers, and thank you, Lord. Enjoy this episode with Karl, where we talk about his life, his family, his journey, how the business got started, and how the business is being reborn. Sweet hallelujah. Enjoy the episode. Nice. So I wanted to sit down and chat with you for a while. So I'm not going to assume everybody on my podcast knows who you are. So who are you, where you're from, and what is your long and illustrious connection to the outdoors and rock climbing, the sport that we love?
Well, I was born in Northern California. I started rock climbing when I was 15 years old. Started in 1975, back when it was considered a fringe sport. Actually, first time I climbed was Castle Rock up in Santa Cruz Mountains. Really awesome sandstone. And I've have a company, Climb Tech, that I've had for 26 years. Doing mostly sold some bolting equipment, the removable bolt, things like that. But we moved our business more into the industrial safety. Basically what we did is we took the climbing mentality and brought climbing equipment into industrial safety and changed the market, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So when you and I officially met in person, bolting out at Inks Ranch, you had mentioned that, and it kind of boggled my mind that the two paths have never actually met before. It just seems like natural. I always assumed climbing equipment came from industrial safety. I didn't realize industrial safety had never even met the climbing safety mentality.
Well, the interesting thing is so I invented a removable bolt, and we launched that in 1998. Within 2 years, this giant concrete company, Seco, $1 billion company, hit us up saying, hey, we have this rock climber. You got this cam that goes in a drilled hole. Can we use it for concrete? So we checked it out. We did it. We developed it, made it a 5,000 pound anchor. kind of looked at the market, and the guy was telling us about fall protection, in the construction industry. So he says, you go check this trade show out. It's in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's called the NSC, National Safety Congress. And so I went to this place. It was 2001. And I got there and I started walking around and I'm going, wow, all this stuff is like rock climbing equipment, but it's like 20 years behind times. And I was thinking, you got sewn harnesses. Well, climbers were the first one to sew harnesses. Climbers were the first ones to come out with carabiners. Climbers were the first one to come out with locking carabiners. Climbers came out with the rope grabs, which came cable grabs. Climbers created the shock absorbing lanyard. All these things that the fall protection guys use, but it's actually the opposite of what you think. It's all developed by climbers. It's the opposite. But they're like way behind the times. And I saw this and I'm like, wow, we can bring our climbing mentality of aluminum, everything was steel and heavy and clunky. We said, we'll bring our climbing mentality into this market. Lightweight alloys, make stuff lighter, more effective, easier to use, and just bring this technology into this market. And that's the direction ClimbTech ended up going. We still, loved climbing and did a lot of bolting equipment, but we went in that market and it was a gold mine.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it just catched wildfire. Cause I remember when you guys came on the scene, I remember when your website popped up because I had just probably started getting into bolting because big mentor and big friend of mine, Jeremy Collins, was just like, yeah, get some bolts, get some equipment, and then just get into it, and he and a bunch of other people had given me some advice. And so I was bolting roots at a crag that's not public access anymore. It's called Paradise on the Brazos right outside of Dallas, Texas. And I remember just getting on the internet, and it was either Europe where I had to buy all my bolts or everywhere else. And then I had called some friends in Austin. I was like, where do you guys get all your stuff? And someone was like, dude, there's this new company that just popped up. You got to buy some stuff here. And I remember looking at your website and I thought most of it was this. I was like, they don't even sell climbing equipment. And then it wasn't until I went up to the tab to shop and then it saw, industrial or whatever it was. And it said sport. And I was like, sport what? I was like, is there sport? Is there industrial sport games now? I was like, I mean, the people ladder race. So I didn't put it past anything. And then all of a sudden it was like Shangri-La. And then the rest of the website, I was like, oh, yeah, this makes sense now.
We did pretty well with the bolting stuff. We dabbled on a few other things, but it never really took off. But we definitely stuck to the bolting. But it was the removable bolt that was everything. Because we were selling probably, 500 to 800 removable bolts a year at the peak, the climbers.
Yeah.
Those first ascenters and stuff.
I have a few of them.
But we were selling 60,000 to the construction market. Yeah, that was a 5,000 pound. We made a 10,000 pound 1-inch removable bolt. We sold 10,000 of those. So it was
10,000 pound?
It was yes.
What is the one I have? That's like 5,000. The standard
it's
one.
2,400.
Oh
yeah.
What does that thing look like?
It's giant. It's like the one you have at 4 times the size. Man, we were selling 10,000 of those things a year, and these guys will pay $300 for them. They won't even bat. Oh, give me 20 of them.
Yeah. I mean, are you still selling them? Are they still sold?
Yeah, they're still on the market. Wow. So we got bought out a couple years ago from Warner Ladders. If you go to Home Depot, all the ladders, they do industrial safety stuff. Mm-hmm. And they bought us because they're into fall protection. And since they bought us, they've tripled their sales. So they're doing really well.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because we private labeled everything. So we would make these in bulk and send them to 3M and Honeywell and Guardian and all the MSA and these big companies around the world. And we had 30 companies that we put their logos on there, we put their labels on there, we put their barcodes on there, their instruction manuals, all. So when you open it up and say, oh, this is a 3M removable bolt, but actually it was made by ClimbTech. Oh. And that's how we made all our money, was through private label. But now that Warner bought us, they just cut everybody off, and now it's all Warner, so they're just skyrocketing.
Yeah, I'm surprised no one did that earlier and did that. So, that I want to jump into the sale and why that happened and what was the reasoning for saying yes to that. But before we dive into that whole world, I'd like to talk a little bit about your climbing history. Where was we were briefly talking before. You started off climbing at Castle Rock. Can you tell us a little bit about your climbing journey and like really like I think everyone who loves climbing like gets into it, but there's usually, I find, like a pinnacle moment or a pinnacle thing that connects with you that made you keep doing it. Because a lot of people rock climb, especially nowadays, but like people who like, there are people who social rock climb. There are people who climb for fitness sakes. And then there are people who climb who are just like insane, like you and I, who are just like, our identity is wrapped up around in it. And like, what made you like take the pivot and take the turn to actually like do that?
So this guy moved in. I was in San Jose. This guy moved in. I was 15. He moved in. We lived in a track house, and he moved in. He was 16 years old, and he lived, a couple houses down. And they come over to my house. My bus stop was in front of my house for years. Mm-hmm. And hey, how's it doing? Nice meeting you. And, a couple days later, whatever. Come out of my house. So I went over to his house, and he had like ropes and carabiners and stuff. And I was like, wow. What is this? And he goes, I'm a rock climber. And I go, oh, you got to take me. I want to go. So he's the one who took me. He had a car. So he drove me up the Castle Rock and he taught me how to rock climb. And at that point, I was into baseball. And at that point, the baseball glove, right in the garbage can. So
wow. You remember this person's name?
Steve Gibbs.
Steve Gibbs.
Steve Gibbs.
Okay.
Yeah. And and I was just hooked. I mean, it was just like, oh, this is the most amazing thing. And so I loved it so much. And by the time I was 16, so I was in high school and I always took summer classes. So my high school was sort of like a junior college. So we had a lot of periods. So like every 30 minutes a class started all day long. So you could build up all these credits. Uh-huh. So I was doing summer school. I was doing work experience. I was racking up my credits and everything. So I was able to, when I was 16, almost 17, I got a job at Western Mountaineering in San Jose. They do a lot of sleeping bags and stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of people know who they were.
Yeah. No, I remember selling their products.
I was stuffing down in sleeping bags and stuff. So, and we started going up to, my dad gave me a car and started going up to Tahoe. And then I started going to Yosemite. And as soon as I graduated, I went up for a summer up in Tuolumne Meadows. I was just hooked. And I really never stopped. I was just obsessed with it. So I did other sports and things like that, but climbing was always my main sport. And I knew that my life was going to be climbing. It was just like, I'm going to devote my life to climbing. So I actually started a company and I developed my first rock climbing device in 1982, 83. It was called a rock and roller. And believe it or not, you might have heard it.
Yeah, this sounds very vaguely familiar.
It's an old roller cam. And and I started and believe it or not, the company was called GoPro.
Whoa.
Yes.
That's ironic.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, huh? Yeah, so I was the first one invented the company called GoPro. And it lasted for about 3 years. We hooked up with DMM, and that was really cool. And my experience with Denny Morehouse, that was crazy. But and then it didn't, the company kind of went under because, the market wasn't that big and it wasn't really an accepted product. And so I learned a bunch and got into construction and things like that. But I climbed. Mm-hmm. But I actually came out with a removable bolt back in the late 80s. And I made a little prototype, but I just never did anything. And I just put it in my drawer. Sat there for 10, 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And no one knew about it. Just like this little...
The sleeping giant.
A little cam that went and drilled a hole. And in 1998, we launched it. And then that's how ClimbTech took off. And, we were going to just have a fun, small company. I had a partner at the time. We were going to have a small little, climbing company and make some money and, live the climbing life. And
it turned into this mega behemoth.
And it just turned into this
monster.
Yeah.
So you've technically been in the, I want to say like gear, design, equipment industry, basically your entire life with climbing. I mean, from stuffing sleeping bags to like inventing the removable bolt in your first couple products. You've kind of been behind the scenes. You've been enjoying the front end of the business, but you've been kind of behind the scenes your entire career and your entire life.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know who I am.
Oh.
But they know the company. I mean, a lot of the bolters, like the big top climbers.
Yeah. I mean, we have
Joe Kinder, Chris Sharman, all those guys know us because, they know me because I make the removable bolts. I'd sponsor gear to them and stuff like that. But the average person, ClimbTech got fairly known.
I think you guys did because I started seeing like your quick draws pop up. I started seeing your rope bags. I mean, in Austin, it was definitely a staple. I'll say that.
It was the perma-draw that
changed the game.
When we came out with the perma-draws, we got them up in rifle and we started popping them up everywhere. And that changed the game for us.
And so for everyone listening, the perma-draws that you have in your normal climbing gym, I want to give credit where credit is due. Like, you're the one who ushered this concept in because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard back in the day, like people even used to bring their own draws to climbing gyms and like clip in and things like this. I don't know if that was ever a thing.
I don't know about that. That's okay. Sounds scary.
Yeah, it sounds terrifying. And I heard that from someone and I was like, I don't think that was a thing. But to give everybody an example, if you've ever gone outside, and most of you who are avid climbers have seen this, it is usually a perma-draw, a thin cable with like a blue or a turquoise kind of like plastic coating over it. And it's a simple draw. And it's made in multiple lengths. And if you've seen that, that is ClimbTech. Odds are you're not paying attention to what's written on it when you're using it. You're just clipping it and hauling ass up the wall. So it's doing its job.
So what we did is we took the steel carabiner, bent gate, but we made the gate, we made it aluminum. Because you know how it is when you're really pumped and you get those stiff gates. Yeah. They're hard to clip because you're pumped. Most people think, oh, no, that can't be that hard. But climbers know when you're really pumped, clipping a gate can be pumpy.
Oh,
so the aluminum gates were so soft it made it. So that was the idea, is like a steel beaner but with an aluminum gate.
Yeah, and I think like people even know it's like, I mean, even in multi-pitch, like think about just like one short runner adds so much drag. It feels like you're being pulled back into the depths of hell. So it makes a massive, massive difference. And then so going with your climbing history, like you kind of like, so we went from bags to gear. And then, and before we jump fully into ClimbTech, I definitely want to kind of revisit the little tidbit I was telling you about my podcast I recorded with Alan Watt. And I didn't realize that it was like Alan had gotten information on like how to retro bolt and how to do that top-down bolting from the French. And then they came over here and started smashing roots.
Yeah, so that these French climbers came over.
Do you know who?
I think it was Patrick Ellinger and Jean. I can't remember his name.
Jean something.
Jean.
Yeah,
they're super strong climbers.
Yeah.
But they were in France, and they were like bolting these roots and doing like these gymnastic type moves and working roots, and their level of climbing just skyrocketed. And then they came over here. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a late 80s or early 90s, something like that.
It wasn't the brothers, was it? The two?
No, the Huber brothers.
Oh, they're not French. They're not French.
No, they're German, I think, or Switch or something. These are French guys, and they came over and they just started crushing everything. They were running up all these routes, and guys like John Bacher and those guys were just like, "Wow, what is this?" And
I can imagine their face.
And they started, and a lot of people were asking, how you climbing so strong, and they were telling everybody how they do it. And Alan Watts got wind of it and talked to him, or went over. I'm not sure if he went over to France and climbed on the routes, but somehow he got involved in that, figuring out how they did it.
I think he talked to them based off our podcast. I'm pretty sure he talked to them.
And then he had Smith Rocks, and he bolted all those routes, and people just went nuts. And what's funny is I all my life, I was always like, the next generation, they're always going to change the sport. It's just the way it is. And you're never, ever, ever going to change it. The youth will come in there and they will advance it and change it. And you just got to go with the flow because you can't stop it.
Yeah.
In any sport. Yeah. It's just the way it is. If you try, you just wash yourself up, and you'll never stop, And there's a lot of people that were upset.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. Alan told me he was getting death threats from people.
Yeah. Well, the climbers were upset when the friend, remember the friend came out? When the friend came out, they were like breaking his car windows and shitting on his car and like.
What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ray Jardine, I think it was his name. Yeah. And they were really upset because they said he was going to ruin it. And then 18 months later, they couldn't make him fast enough.
That's insane.
Yeah, and then Fee-Ray Flyers was the same thing when it came out, or those Fee-Ray, the Boreal Fee-Rays.
Yeah, okay.
The
So
sticky rubber shoe.
We have to go into this because I know we talked about this before, but like, I think this is a tidbit of information that most people do not know. And when you were telling me this, my brain was like overload because I was thinking of all these shoes that I've owned before. So original climbing shoes, back Chambonard shoes, right, had a
Chambonard, yeah, they had like shanks and like steel
metal shanks at the bottom of the shoe.
Yeah.
And so they're just stiff and like just hard rubber. And then
EB.
Okay, so yeah, tell me this, like who came up?
So EB was like a basketball high top tennis shoe, and it was flexible and it had like a racing a rubber sole, but it was like rock hard rubber. It was like really hard, so it would slip off stuff. And basically what the Fee-Ray did is they just took that same shoe and threw on some racing rubber, like off a F1 car, super sticky rubber, and they threw that on the and all of a sudden your feet were sticking to everything. Instead of skating off everything, you had this like super sticky rubber, and the climbers, the old guard climbers just went nuts. They were so upset. It's cheating. It's going to ruin the sport, blah, blah, blah. Typical bullshit always happens. And then 18 months later, they couldn't make them fast enough.
So, like, who comes up with this shit? Like, really, like, we're sitting at home, we're in Spain, drinking some wine, hanging out. Dude, let's take racing car rubber and shove it on a shoe. Who is the connection?
I don't know who actually made the shoe. I know it was John Bacher who created Boreal at the time, and he was distributing them. So he brought them to the United States, and he was selling them, and it was made in Spain.
Yeah,
the shoes were made in Spain. So somebody in Spain
had a connection,
had something, and somebody made that shoe, and go check this out, and he globbed onto that and launched it, and that was the start of the sticky rubber shoe.
That just blows my mind. Yeah, I mean, once again, as you said, like the youth is going to come in, change the world, change the game, and like it's either get on board or get off, And it's like that just blows my mind. Like I'm really curious. That one of these days, I'm hoping I get to like talk to someone who can like. I want to know who knew who's like, hey, can I get some high performance F1 rubber? Like I can just imagine that conversation being like, why? Like I'll tell you later. And it's just like. Okay. And then next thing you know, this manufacturer who makes this stuff cannot make enough of it fast enough.
Yeah. I mean, the shoe would wear out like 3 times as fast, but people didn't care because they were so sticky.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, I climb in soft shoes. I have to buy new shoes every year.
I started out in Chambonard shank shoes, and I went to EBs. And then when those Fee-Rays came out, I mean, I grabbed a pair so fast, and it was night and day. It was like, I was doing stuff like my foot was sticking on everything. It's just like, wow, I can use my feet. It was, it's incredible. But going back to Alan Watts, it's like, I got a lot of respect for Alan Watts. I mean, he's probably one of my all-time climbing heroes because I've bolted a lot of routes. I've been bolting routes all my life. And, but he stepped it up. And he really took that sport climbing and launched it. And he got a lot of flack for it. Yeah. But it didn't take long before he was like a hero. And I mean, kudos to him. I mean, he went for it and he changed it over here.
Changed the industry.
It would have came eventually.
Yeah, you're right.
But he was the one that had the foresight to say, you know what? He had Smith Rocks right there. And he said, what better place can you do this new European style sport climbing. And it was right in his backyard. And
yeah, because he told me his dad used to take him on hikes and they would go walking back in this area all the time. And they never actually, it was just never really climbed. It was like there was a couple random things, like people doing I guess there were some cracks or some things you could protect. But for the most part, it was just blank.
Yeah, just
all the time.
Base climbing.
There's nothing there. And now that monstrosity is... the epicenter of it's the epicenter of sport climbing on the West Coast. I mean. Oh
yeah. Well, if you think about it, Smith Rock is most of it's dead vertical with really small holes, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of limestone is vertical overhanging, right? So if you're not pounding like in the old days, pounding pitons in little holes, but a lot of times, you're not going to climb up and be drilling on those type of routes off hooks and stuff. This is too desperate, right?
Yeah.
So they just don't really climb there. Like, granted, a lot of times you get like these little voids where you can get a perch and you can sit and you can stand, and you can drill. A lot of them run out, but there's always a lot of times it's not
not that way.
It's always kind of a low angle, so it's a lot easier to bolt off lead. But Smith Rocks was like, so you just lower the rope and clean it and
just go for it.
TR it, figure out where you want your bolts. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for bringing that into existence, because it makes, from a development standpoint aside, I mean, like Michael yesterday and I we were bolting routes ground up, it's just because I like to do it every once in a while. It kind of gives me an idea to the area, and I bring everything in the kitchen sink, and him and I basically said next week, like, whenever we kind of figure out our schedules, we're just going to wrap down and just like, and then just kind of get a bunch of stuff done. But even then it's like, just like the time that it took us to do this one route going ground up and thinking about like how fast we can, like how fast it is and how more convenient it is, that style, and just makes things more accessible and you can get more routes up. And and that's the point. The point is to make more quality routes more accessible for a wider group of people. That's like the single point of, at least for me, like I bolt things that I want to climb selfishly, but I also I try to keep it to like a 2-to-1 ratio. For every one thing I bolt selfishly for myself, I try to put like 2 moderates or 2 something else for other people getting into the sport. Because it's boring when you go somewhere and climb and everything's nails hard at this one zone and none of your friends can climb. None of your friends can do anything. And then you got to walk all the way over to the other side. It's just a terrible experience. And that's something we kind of got into this log train about it yesterday.
I like bolting. I want people to climb my route. I want lines on my route.
Trade routes. Yeah.
If it's not a trade route, I really just
don't want anything to do with it.
I'll bolt 5/8 and 5/9
all day.
Yeah.
All day.
And then people line up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that kind of like segues into like Climb Tech. So you've sold this monster and it changed the game, I think, in like accessibility to hardware. I think that's where it really changed the game, especially for me, because like it was just so hard to get gear locally at a reasonable price and something that's it. Because after that, I was either buying bolts overseas or buying Hilti, which their bolts are extremely expensive. Oh, yeah. They're like, I mean, it's just redonkulous. It's like $500 for a box of 60, and it's like, it just,
putting up roots can be expensive.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, because also I think a misconception too is everyone thinks every bolt works, and that's not the case at all. Like sometimes you lose something, sometimes it doesn't work. I always tell people like route development is like you
have waste.
Yeah. I mean, you're like a garbage man, a plumber, and a carpenter all in one. It's like Michael and I were yesterday, we were joking. We were like, RD is my BDSM. And route development is my BDSM, because it's this masochistic love, and you're like it's wild.
Yeah, but some of my first routes I bolted Mount St. Helena and Napa, and I mean this is back in the late '70s, and it was like literally we were making our own hangers, like bolting routes.
What do you do to do that? Is it just like
they've all been retro, a long time ago.
But still, like, is it just like getting a sheet of metal, drilling it through, and getting a blowtorch and just
you get angle iron?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just get angle iron, cut it, and you just grind it down and drill holes, and
okay,
there you go.
All right, fair enough. Man, simple enough.
Yeah, but still, it's soft metal,
No, it's not gonna last.
No.
So what's next on the horizon now? Now you've got. I definitely want to talk about what's on the horizon. Then I also want to talk about your daughter and your family, because when you and I met in person, she's a whirlwind in herself. But then you were telling me she's 9 now.
9, yeah.
9, but she bolted her first route last year.
Yeah, she was 8. She bolted a route.
Yeah.
A trade route. I mean, last time we were at Inks Ranch, I think she had like 40 different parties climbing in 2 days that route. I mean, they were lining up. It was incredible. Lining up. There was like 15 people standing in line. It was great.
Oh, I'm sure she was so proud.
She was, yeah. And they all knew her. It was like, oh, that's that little girl that bolted this route. And it was pretty awesome. But yeah, I got plans for her.
Yeah, I could tell. I'm sure she has plans of her own too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, what's next? So now the Climbtech sold. You know, you are taking a little bit of a hiatus, I think.
Well, I'm been running. You know, of course, Warner is a big, you know, multi-billion-dollar company. So I've been kind of general managing Climbtech. I signed a 3-year contract as part of the deal that I would stay for 3 years. I mean, I didn't have to, but you know, they were giving me a bonus. But the person that landed the whole deal has been working for Warner. He's a friend of mine. I've known for 20 years in the industrial industry, and a great guy. And I told him, you know, you land this deal, and I will work for 3 years. I will devote. And, you know, until you guys get this all, you know, launched and brought into your company and all set up. And my handshake means a lot to me.
Yeah.
So, but I got 7 months left. And, so Warner is killing Climbtech. But there's no more Climbtech as a climbing company.
Okay.
It's a brand in industrial because it's well known in the industrial market.
That makes sense.
Yes.
There would be too much confusion and crossover.
Big companies, Halliburton, Kiewit, all these big companies know who we are. So we're very well known in industrial. And it's a big, I mean, it helps Warner a lot that, their, you know, Climbtech is basically their innovation company now. They're innovating all their equipment for the industrial safety. But climbing is gone. They cut it all off.
Okay.
And so my contract comes up. I'm done.
Yep.
That era of my life is going to be done, and I'm moving on, and I'm going to start another climbing business.
Nice. Can we say what it's going to be, or do you want to wait?
We can say it. Yeah. So I already got the website and everything. It's called Sport Bolting.
Nice.
So it's still going to be based on bolting. So we're going to do the Wave bolts, which was a good product of ours.
Yeah, that thing took off.
And the Muncie hooks. And then I've created I'm calling it the Century Bolt. And the idea is we launched a bolt called the Legacy, but it was too expensive.
I remember.
So I redesigned it. I made it much simpler and cost effective. So I'm going to launch that.
I'm excited.
Getting ready to get the patent on that. And basically the idea is just you drill a hole, 15 years later you pull it out, simply stick another one back in, torque it down. 15 years later you pull it out, stick another one back in, and try to get 100 years out of a hole.
I think the thing I love about that idea is from a management side, as someone who, you know, is doing route developments, trying to open up in a climbing area of their own, like, to me, when I think, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but like, one, that makes developing a lot easier. And also that makes it easier to ask people and companies and people to get on board with supporting an area. Because especially,
absolutely,
because now, like, the best advice I ever heard from someone is, if you have any idea, if you can make a spreadsheet that shows an ROI and, you know, like anything you want, like, but as long as you can back it up with a spreadsheet, like, you can get a lot farther in life. And to me, that's one of the biggest things. That's like, when you look at companies wanting to invest in these ideas or these people, or even just like social initiatives, like I feel like, especially when it comes to climbing and crags and areas like that, it's just these mythical numbers that like don't have a lot of, like, trail maintenance is pretty set. Like, you develop a trail, you know it's going to cost X amount. Like, the Access Fund has done so much work and has so much data. They can tell you, depending on how well you develop a trail, how long it's going to last, what the erosion is rate, and then when you're going to have to redo it. Like, they can tell you almost on the dime, you know, and I don't think that's been true for climbing, for route development. Before, it's kind of like, well, when do these bolts need to be replaced? And how much is it going to cost, or what is it going to be, or what is it like no one knows. And I'm very curious to see, like, what the Century Bolt is going to usher in.
Well, we want to make it simple.
Yes.
So you want to make it simple. You want to make it, you know, sort of like, okay, we can replace these very simply. They come right out, you know, and the idea is that, you know, we're not chopping, we're not damaging the rock. We're just pulling it out. We can pull it out early, right? Throw it away, put a new one right in the same spot. Super easy. Takes, you know, 2-3 minutes, pull it out and put another one in, torque it down. You know, we could set a plan, you know, if it's like a sensitive area, and say, like, every 15 years, we log them, 15 years, stainless, we'll pull it out no matter what the condition is.
Yeah.
And then it means, you're not up there, you're not chopping things off, you're not drilling holes next to it.
You're not damaging anything else.
Not damaging, yeah.
Yeah, because that also causes problems, which people don't under realize all the time. And I think from a Park Service kind of standpoint, this is why I'm really happy to have this conversation, because with Park Services, the whole idea is conservation. There's the conservation of resources. And like, that's the whole idea. And I think now you are really taking it, making it a much more sustainable thing. And I think, anchors have come a long way. And now with the actual bolt changing, I think it's going to change a lot. It's not going to change the actual way the process is done, but I think it changes the way that we can advocate for the access to new areas.
Exactly, because some of these, forestry departments and things like that, a lot of them just don't like climbers, and if they can use any excuse to get us kicked out or shut it down,
They will.
So we have the more weapons we have in our arsenal to use against that, and say, hey, we're developing this stuff, we're making changes, it's better for us, it gives us a better fighting chance.
Yeah.
And I just think being able to use that same hole over and over and over is just,
I think it is, because now you're talking about something also too, and not, this is going to happen, because I know it's going to happen. I'm just waiting for it to happen. But at the same time, I also think this is also a system where you can have Park Service rangers actually understand what's going on. They can actually be involved in the process of maintenancing. I don't think they want to, but to me, like what you're talking about, because of the level of sustainability, because it's just one simple impact that can be logged, that can be tracked, all of a sudden it changes everything. Because I'm sure you and I both have been in a situation where like, you're trying to remove a bolt, it doesn't come out, you've got to like epoxy it up, drill something next to it like we just said. It turns into, and that's why I say earlier, you have to be a plumber, a garbage man, and a carpenter.
Yep.
All in one. And people think that it's like, well, why? I'm like, because if it doesn't work, you have to make something else work. Because you have to justify like the 5 other bolts that you just put in the wall below them. Or do you like, oh, this isn't going to go, I'm just going to end this route in the middle of the route. Or am I going to yank everything out that I just put all the way in? And it's like, it's this big process. And I think what this is going to do, I think it's going to make Park Services and other companies, I think it's going to allow, I think it's going to open a door. I don't know exactly what it's going to do, but I want to be a fly on the wall when the conversations in the community starts happening. Because I do think, I would like to see as a personal change, a big shift to this kind of bolting. And I get that other bolts are cheaper and easier, and I understand they're going to be a long time, but I want to shift to this because I think this is the future. Yeah,
let's take like perfect example. You and I have both been out of Inks Ranch, and we bolted out there. Private ranch.
Yep.
Climbing out there's great. Lots of potential stuff. They said everything has to be stainless.
Yep.
Right. And if we have to, if they decide to change or maybe change their mind, they're trial and error. They're kind of just opening up five or six weekends a year to see how it goes, to see if they like it. They might decide, they said they might want to shut it down and want all the gear removed. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're very happy the way it's going, but when they first started,
that was a possibility.
That was a possibility, right?
That would be.
But that's the same ththing as say, we have these bolts
that are easily removable.
Right. And if Park Services are worried about, you're going to put that bolt that's going to last 15 years and you got to cut the thing off and you got to drill a hole next to it. And then in 30 or 40 years, you're going to have all these, and then they get all upset, and we don't want that. And
it's also a monster removing those. Cause I was like, right when you said that, I thought about it. I was like, it would literally take an army of like 100 people working around the clock.
Dude, you're going to shit your pants when you see this thing. You're going to go, oh, this is so basic. You're going to shit. I can't wait. You're going to shit your pants.
When are you going to have a working prototype?
I'm going to have, we're working on some samples right now, some prototypes right now.
Nice.
Yeah. We're doing 3D print.
Oh, nice.
Plastic 3D print things, just kind of playing with them.
Okay, perfect.
But my goal is to have it out by spring.
Okay.
So I should, in 2 months, I should have it figured out. It's pretty simple. I'll have it figured out. I'll be working on, the patents probably in July, August.
I like that you say it's pretty simple, and to the layman person who knows nothing about industrial hardware or building anything, to me, I'm like, there's no way this that simple. Like it's
pretty simple. When you see it, you're gonna go, okay. Why didn't anybody else think of that? But you know, it's the KISS theory, right?
Oh.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep. Yeah.
The legacy bolt was way too, it worked, but it was way too complex. And it was just so expensive machine that, those things are going to be $20, $25 bolts. And then people just like, forget, I ain't going to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean.
No, we got to get them with hanger and bolt, we got to get them $10.
That's reasonable, because like with hanger and bolt right now with a wedge, you're probably what, like $7, $8, yeah, $7, $8, maybe $6 if you're lucky.
Yeah, stainless $7, $8.
Yeah. Zinc a little lower.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see this monster. I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited to see it, but I really actually want to just break out a drill and like place it. Is it gonna come in 3/8 and a half?
Well, it's gonna be half inch.
Half inch. Oh. Yeah.
And
why, is it not possible to make it smaller?
Yeah, I think so. But we're going to start with half inch.
That makes sense.
And see how it does and test it. But okay. My daughter's going to be the first one to bolt a root with it.
Okay, fair enough. I'll get in line.
Yeah.
I'll get in line.
She's going to be the first. I have to, because
I get that.
We've been involved with Inks Ranch, and I've been one of the mentors, trying to get, basically most of the bolting just been, white dudes. Yeah. Right. There's a few women that have bolted roots, but not
a lot.
I count them on my hand, right?
Yeah.
And minorities is like, pretty non-existent. I've had a few. I know some, Brazilians that have bolted, some Mexicans, but generally, pretty much dominated.
Yeah.
And women are like, they just And
it's minute.
It's minute.
Yeah, I will say that. Like that's actually some of the female route setters in our crew at the gym. Like I've. Not all of them, but I've walked up to most of them and I'm like, hey, I have some bolting that I'm doing down south in Texas. Would you like to come and do it? And they're like, oh, but it's okay. And I was like, and I rephrased what I said. I was like, I would like to teach you how to bolt, to make it an option for you. And this also goes to any woman listening to this podcast, woman, minority, really anybody. But ideally, I'm like amplifying this to women and minorities. I don't care who you are, point blank. I don't care who you are. But their bolting in itself is not inclusive enough. And I get that it's also a finite resource, not because there isn't enough rock around the go in the world. I mean, we've probably bolted a fraction of all the rock that's in the world. Oh, like we haven't even seen it all. The thing is, it's so much of it is either, and especially in the United States, is private land. Like you don't even know it exists. Like, I mean, I found a crag, a little teeny thing that I found like driving around Texas. And I was like, what is this thing doing here? And it's like just sitting here. This little teeny bluff right off the side of the road. I walked down, wrapped down, bolted 3 roots in it, put up a 5.7, 5.8, this 5.10. And I'm like, this thing is probably sitting here for like 1,000 years. People have been driving by it every day.
Never bolted it.
And never bolted it. And I was just driving by and I literally, it caught me out of the corner of my left eye and I saw it on a bridge. I was driving a bridge. I was like, what is that? And it's that classic limestone streak that you see. And I like remember I pulled over, figured out how to whack my way over there. I figured out there was a road, and next thing you know, that's it. But getting back to the point though is the diversity within bolting and root development is so small.
Yeah, but the thing is, you and I know.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than climbing your own route you just bolted. It's like drinking a fine beer, right? It's just, it's so good. It's just the best. I mean, people don't know. It's like you can climb all the great routes in your life, but when you put up a trade route and you know that route's like, oh, this thing is gonna be so good, and you bolt it and you send it, and then everybody lines up to climb it. There's nothing better. I mean, that's the best feeling in climbing for me. And I'm hoping that my daughter they'll not only just women, but youth will inspire some people to say, hey, this young girl, she's bolting roots, we should try that. Maybe she'll get some friends.
I'm hoping so.
And they'll bolt some roots. And
I'm hoping so. My biggest thing that I hope to see from your daughter doing this, and then my trip to Malawi, and then a few other things that I have coming in the pipeline, like what I want to do and for anyone listening to this too, like I'm very open about this, but I want to spearhead public-private development of access to land, because I think it's Scotland. It's either Scotland or Wales, one of those places up there, but a lot of the land is private. Most of the land is private. However, it is a public, it's not like a law or anything, but it's just understood that access to cliffs, access to these little easement trails that are like, they're well groomed trails. There's sometimes a lot of them are fenced off, so you don't go in the areas that you're not supposed to. But letting people have access to the natural beauty and the natural wonder that's out there is like, what, and I don't know if it will ever happen. I honestly don't.
I don't know about England and Scotland. I know like in Germany, there's a lot, like a Frankenmuir, like all these ranches for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. And there's these limestone cliffs tucked in the trees. A lot of times you can't even see them. You're just driving down the roads, and all these batches of those black forest trees, the big pine trees. There's all these limestone cliffs tucked inside there, and they're just everywhere. There's like thousands and thousands of them. But you just could pull off a road and you can walk on a farmer's land in Germany, and there's a trail. You just go in there and you can bolt roots and climb. And
whatever you want.
The farmers just, hey, how you doing? You walk in there and it's like, you can't sue, you can't do anything. So if you do anything in there, it's like, they'll come in, maybe get an ambulance and pull you out. But, the farmer has nothing to worry about.
No, and I think that's...
And they're just the mentality over just like, oh, they're going to hike around and climb. Oh, that's great. Have a good time, kids. Right? But your own responsibility, they're not going to worry about anything.
No, and I think that's the problem is that's not the case here in Texas. And it's like, I want to see that change. And I get that, like, it's a structural change. It's a cultural change that's got to happen. Like, this is not something that, like, it's going to happen overnight. And you're also trying to convince people whose land has been privatized in their property, no one else has been on it for decades and generations, that, like, opening it up to a certain extent within boundaries that you are comfortable with. This is your land. I want to make very clear. This is your land. But doing this, I think, one, would bring so much economic prosperity to small towns in Texas and small towns and places. Two, I think the amount of, like, just access to this that would improve public health, public joy. Like there are more wins than there are losses. And, just like anything with hunting, like, you can make it like in Iraq during hunting season. There's no rock climbing allowed. I think it is. Like, there's a season where...
It's 2 weeks, I think.
It's like 2 weeks. And then I know in the Wichitas, they have something like the same thing. And there are places where, like I think Cochise Stronghold, when there's buzzard season, like, certain areas are just shut off. And, like, that's a common practice.
Yeah.
Like, it's not nothing anything. Like, I think I just think I would just love to see more people come to the table and just, like, want to talk about this and that. But I just don't think it's going to happen. Until
I think climbing is really starting to get mainstream too, though. So I think a lot of people are watching movies, and everybody knows about it, and it's like, oh, these places are climbing areas. Yeah. And eventually, it's going to take another 20, 30 years, but I think a lot of stuff hopefully will start opening.
I think it will expedite if a Texan wins Olympic gold in rock climbing. Then all of a sudden, because it's like you need a Heisman. And if a rock climber wins a Texas Olympic gold across the board, and it's a solid Texan, and Texas goes nuts about it, it's the equivalent of a football Heisman trophy, like a 6-man football player winning the Heisman.
All right, we got to go find a kid and train.
Yeah,
train them hard.
Now I haven't quit coaching in 20 years.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, I want to see it. And I think that, honestly, once again, like you kind of stated this in the beginning, the youth are gonna be the ones who make these changes.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, I think it's just our job as older guards is really just to kind of like make sure, one, that like certain principles and certain ethics are still, like, mindsets are still transferred on, but how the access is used, how these things are done, like it's gonna change with them. And passing the knowledge on to them, and then making sure that they take that knowledge in the right direction. Yeah. And make sure that you guide them in the right direction. Yeah. And then after that part, just take the reins off and just let them go. Because they're going to have to train the generation after that. Bet. Right? Yeah. And it's a cycle. It is. Yeah. It's like, well, I know you do a lot of stuff overseas and stuff like that. And I've done some stuff down in Brazil. We have a bunch of kids down there. Yeah. And we taught them how to develop this big wall. I mean, there's this giant granite dome in this little town. All these people are poor. But there's all these kids wanting to kind of climb.
we got like 30 kids down there climbing now. And we developed this whole wall and taught these kids how to climb. And now it's funny. Most of these kids would be 14, 15, they're girls and boys. And first thing you do is they get a girlfriend, they get pregnant. Next thing you know, they're 20 and they have 3 kids. And they live in this vicious cycle of living in poverty. And then they have a bunch of kids. And then, their kids turn 14 and they have babies and they work out in the fields, and it's like this vicious cycle, right? Yeah. And we got these kids, and now these kids are all getting like in their mid-20s. And they're traveling outside their little town. They're going to cities. They're going all over to Brazil. They're climbing all over the place. Some are starting to leave the country. Yeah. They're going to cities and getting jobs. They're going to school. They're like, I want to climb. I want to go to Europe and go climb. And so they get these big, wonderful dreams.
And they make it happen.
And you break the cycle, right? And then they get in their 30s and then, okay, we're going to have kids, but then our kids are going to go to school. Our kids are going to, our kids are going to climb. Our kids are going to travel. They're going to get educated, and then they're going to be in their 30s and they're going to have a family, and then their kids, and then you break that cycle.
It's funny you say that, because it's like people always ask me like, why was climbing so special to me? And I always tell people, I was like, it's never that I was a bad kid. I wasn't really doing anything, but that's the problem. I didn't have anything going on. Like, granted, back in the day, my dad was like, listen, as long as you didn't get somebody pregnant, you don't have a prison record, and, you're not a drug addict, you're doing all right for a black man. Like, you just keep your head low, and just don't do that. And it never really gave me any aspirations, like, and it's like, and I like, granted, I had a job. I was never a bad person, but I was going nowhere really fast. And that very much so is the reality of like probably what would have happened. And like, and I just think about now, if I never found climbing, which by no means, if this is someone's life, by no means if I'm knocking on it. If this is what you want, then more power to you, and I support you. But I literally thought all I would be doing is like working at Walmart, maybe hopefully be a manager one day, have a bunch of kids, and like just like that was just the end of my life. And now I think about my life, I have seen more of the world than I have ever possibly ever would have imagined. And I have had the access and the privilege to see more things that I genuinely
thought it would never.
I just didn't know it exists.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that I never thought about it. Like, I just genuinely, fathomably did not know. Like if you would have asked me, like, what is it? I'm like, what does that doesn't exist.
And what's great is when you travel, you go to places like tourists will never go.
Oh, never.
And you meet people tourists would never the real culture and people. That's what's great about the sport.
Oh yeah. That's what I love about it so much.
You can literally say, you know what, I'm going to go to France and just get on a plane and fly over there and go to the local climbing gyms. Hey, I'm looking for some climbers. I'm from Texas. And next thing you know, you're over for 6 months. Yeah. Hanging out with people.
Oh yeah.
With a whole bunch of friends.
It's funny you say that, because I've done that. I've showed up at a gym in Europe before, and they'll be like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, Texas. And everyone's like, John Wayne.
Yeah, whatever.
Bang, bang, bang. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, that was a long time ago. Everyone's like, that show Dallas is amazing. Oh yeah. Do you live in Dallas? Is all of Texas Dallas? And I'm like, but people are not that. Like, some people, like in smaller like communities who don't know. In modern cities, everyone knows and everyone's that. But I've definitely been in like small little communities that like don't have a lot of resources, not a lot of access to the internet or anything like that. But everybody knows John Wayne. Yeah. Everybody knows the show Dallas, which blows my mind.
That's crazy, huh? Yeah. So yeah, traveling, this sport, definitely you get a lot of travel and stuff like that. Yeah. And I look back at my life, and I'll be 64 in a month.
You look great.
Yeah, and I feel strong. I climb strong. I jump out of bed every morning. I feel so healthy. I feel like I'm 30. Climbing is this because of climbing. Yeah. And climbing has given me great health, great friends, a great life. I've made some good money off it. Mm-hmm. I've done really well with the sport of climbing, and now it's like some of my stuff is like in Brazil and stuff like that. It's like I got to give back.
Yeah,
I got to give back.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for your new business. And I'm honestly very excited that you and I had finally a chance to connect and meet and I'm looking forward to having you be a part of my journey and me being a part of yours. And I'm also very excited to just stand in the coattails of your daughter's journey of this, how this is going to happen.
She was so excited when she saw you on that show. She was rooting for you. She was like, "Oh, go, 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 go!" She's sitting up front at the TV, like watching it. It was so funny.
I look forward to sitting down and having an interview with her one day and seeing where her journey and everything is taking her, because it's wild, man. Like, I think you as a parent definitely understand this, but I think more so as a climber, I'm just so excited to see what climbing is going to look like in 20 years.
It's going to be amazing.
There are very few sports in life that I think that fundamentally change you at your core. And Chris Sharma said this on the show. He was like, climbing is one of the unique sports that, like, if you really get involved, it fundamentally changes you at your core. And I think climbing, whitewater rafting, any kind of water river sports do, and any kind of like true backpacking adventure, like where you have to be out in the midst of nature for a while. Any of those three things, because there's a certain level of self-autonomy that you have to achieve. And there's a certain level of like humbleness and humility where you have to realize that, like, I am never in control when you're out in the middle of nature and you're out in the middle of the world, even though we're climbing on bolted routes that we spent all this time that we bolt and we put together. And I agree with you earlier.
It's so true, because I've done a lot of extreme sports, and none of them are like climbing. None of them are like the culture, just not only the confidence and just what it does for your life, how you view life. I used to race motocross. I mountain bike for years. Now, like, I'm really big in jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
I've been skiing all my life. I was a professional dancer for a long time, but all those sports were like, they were fun, but there wasn't that, how can I say it? It's like they never had a community.
Yeah.
Dancing would be the only one that would be close.
I feel like
that's because you went to big conventions and stuff, but still it never had that community. Mm-hmm. You couldn't be a skier or a dancer or a motocross guy or maybe mountain bike, I don't know, but a mountain, and just, hey, I'm going to go fly over somewhere and get hooked up with a community, be living in some guy's house because they're a climber, Yeah. Climbing has that, it's like an international thing.
It is. It's very much so.
Because me and my friend were climbing Half Dome, and we were going to do it in a day. So we got up there and we took off. We fixed like 400 feet, and then we took off like 3:30 in the morning. Well, we got on there, and there's two other parties behind us, and, so a party of three. And we got 3/4 of the way out, and it's starting to get dark, right? And there was two guys from Italy and two guys from Portugal.
Okay.
They were up there doing the routes. They didn't know none of us knew each other, right? And next thing you know, they're up, and the guy comes up to them and says, "We got to get to the top," you know what I mean? And so I took the Italian guy's rope and tied it on, right? And we dragged their rope up and fixed it. And then just to get to the top, because everybody wanted to get to the top before it got dark.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then they pulled up the Portuguese guys' ropes, and just like 6 guys, 2 Americans, 2 Italians, 2 Portuguese out of nowhere on some sheer face, 2,000 feet off the ground, trying to get to the top of this thing, tag teaming it together, right?
Yeah.
They're like Insta buddies.
Yeah.
And then the next day we sat and made food and camped forward and had beers and laughed and you don't get that from other sports.
You don't. And I think there's this communal suffering that you go through. And I think that alone is what makes it. Because, that's kind of where this podcast kind of came from, Sends and Suffers. It came from sitting around in a campfire, wanting people to engage and wanting people to talk. And then I was like, what was your send and what was your suffer? And now the stuff that I heard at campfire, people talking about like the struggles they took to get there, the struggles they had on the wall, things like that. Those are made friendships now that are still bonded to this day. And I think you are correct. It's this community is so unique. But I think it's the action of what we do that is, I don't know if what I'm about to say is really correct. So I'm just going to shoot in the dark here. Rock climbing is single-handedly the most selfish and selfless sport if you are basing your actions within the community. Because it's selfish because we just want to rock climb. and we want to do our route.
You want to send your route.
But it's selfless because it just doesn't matter if the community's not involved. And I get, when I was younger, I was like, I just want to climb the hardest things and I want to do my thing. But it probably wasn't until like my mid-20s where I realized rock climbing is stupid. Like, it is dumb in its entirety.
If you think about it.
Yeah, it's really dumb.
Especially if you're a non-climber, you're like, why would you do that?
It's so dumb. But what makes it magical is the experiences that you have with people, putting yourself in a situation that forces you to grow some gumption and just like put yourself out there. Yeah. And because of that level of vulnerability and intimacy, it builds bonds. Like, those guys just had to trust you, and you're like tying it in. You're like, okay, we're going to make this work. And the thing about it is there's not a question in your mind whether they should or not. And that's like and I think that's something.
There was just, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's just do this.
Yeah, okay, fine. It wasn't even, it was like, it's almost like it's a bond in a sport where you get in those circumstances and it's like, you just do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, that's part of the sport.
Absolutely.
You just do it.
And I don't think that's true. And I agree with you. I don't think that's true in a lot of other sports and a lot of other disciplines. I don't want to end this conversation, but we definitely do need to wrap it up here. And I want to say this, and I don't know if this is true for the Austin community or whatever. I'm not here, but I climb here a lot. But I definitely want to say thank you for the innovations and for the things you have done, because I get that, like, you're doing it for two reasons. One, you want to rock climb. Two, you want to make the sport better. But I think the third thing is it does take a lot of work and dedication, because there's probably plenty of other things you could have done throughout your life. And I do want to say thank you for that, because I don't think, like you, Alan, a lot of other guys that have come through the sport, and also who have been very accepting of people who look like me and young people of coming in. It's not like, that is not as big of a thing as people would like to make it seem. And I'm speaking to everyone listening to this. Like, you would be surprised how many people of the older guard are not psyched that youth are coming in. They're very upset about it. Like, they feel like they're ruining it, and they're not happy that all these people, whether they mean me or just a lot of people in general, are getting into it. And I think you guys, as being sleeping giants or sleeping pillars in the community that are just silently moving around in the background and really kind of encouraging us and encouraging people to come in, is a massive deal. And I don't think it gets said enough. And I brought this up with Alan after the show, that I was like, it means a lot to me, because it just, like, when I got into climbing, it wasn't that way. It was not that way. And it always rubbed me the wrong way. It always rubbed me the wrong way. And I think I'm so happy to know that the longer I've stayed in climbing, the better I have seen it get from both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me. So thank you.
I like the growth. I like where it's going. It's like when I was first learning how to rock climb, and there was no black people climbing. I never saw for decades.
Yeah.
No, it's just black people that climb.
No.
And now it's just like, a bunch of them.
Boom.
It's great.
Yeah. And how often were kids climbing when you were coming in?
Not, it was pretty much, when I started, there was a handful of Asians and some, Hispanic people, but it was mostly just white dudes.
Yeah.
And maybe their girlfriend would tag along in TR or something, but other than that. But I mean, the women now?
Oh.
It's incredible.
Oh.
They're friggin' strong.
Oh, they rule the world. Like, anyone who does not know, women are by far the best climbers out of the whole bunch.
You know what's amazing about the sport?
What?
You know what's amazing about the sport? And I tell people about this. It's like, this is one of the sports where women are literally just a micro notch. The best female climbers in the world are just a notch under the best male climbers.
And it's going to overtake soon.
It probably be
if it hasn't already.
Yeah. With little tiny fingers, and some girl's going to come in and send something so stupid. And it's like, it's not like football, basketball, baseball, all these sports where professional men would just annihilate the women in that sport. Annihilate.
No, this sport, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed with women is especially young women. Like we all know this. A 10-year-old girl can kick the crap out of a 10-year-old boy. Like the girls who just mature faster.
Yeah.
They're stronger at a younger age. But the sheer level of like intellectual know-how that I see the girls that I coach putting forth effort, like I watch them and I'm like, you girls are going to be light years ahead.
Oh yeah.
Like light years ahead. Because like, you know, the boys, the biggest thing I have to use to get on them is like, don't just be strong. And like the women, like they're not that way. And if the girl is strong, along with that, you watch out. It is this phenomenon.
Don't be surprised if 516 goes down to a female.
Oh, I hope so.
That'd be awesome.
I legitimately am hoping. Yes.
Like, yeah, that would be incredible.
Oh,
then you can say it's like up.
Yeah.
This is one sport women dominate the guys.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sorry, boys.
I want to see it come to pass. I want to see it come to pass. I think bet on that one. So if people can support you, can we start buying stuff from your...
Yeah, we're going to... so I ordered like 15,000 weight bolts. Mm-hmm. So they've been discontinued. There's no more at Climb Tech. Mm-hmm. So I ordered 15,000 of them. They're supposed to be here in September.
Nice.
So September, October will be the launch when I open it up.
Nice. And then are you going to be doing manufacturing too as well eventually at some point in time, or mainly distribution?
Well, I have he's a very close friend, family friend now. He's a guy in Taiwan.
Okay, nice.
He's been doing a lot of our industrial safety equipment.
Nice.
He's been making the wave bolts for us.
Nice.
He does the Muncie hooks. Very trusted. That's all he does is safety equipment. He's not...
Doesn't do anything else.
No, he doesn't do anything else.
That's good.
Really good man. I've taken his kids climbing, and I trust him. And he'll be making my equipment in Taiwan.
Beautiful. I'm excited about this.
I don't do anything in China because I just can't trust in manufacturing.
No, I get that. I mean, it's a common problem across the board.
Yeah. And there's issues in Taiwan too, but this guy's in the industrial safety, so you can't mess around with that equipment. So,
no, that makes sense.
He's very high end precision.
So in September, we should be able to buy gear, bolts, whatever you want, merch, whatever you're selling on the internet.
Yeah, there'll be like an ad in a magazine or something.
Beautiful. Well, cool.
You'll know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, if you have an opening party, you let me know. I will be here in a heartbeat. Okay, outside of that, how can people if you want people to, how can people find you online, support you, get in contact with you?
The website should be up and running. So I got the domain, I got the LLC, I got my federal ID number. Mm-hmm. So it should be up hopefully in a couple months. I should maybe have something on a website. Okay. Just an introduction website.
And what is the website going to be? What is the domain?
It's sportbolting.com.
Sportbolting.com. Perfect. That will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
Perfect. And anybody you want to give a shout out to, say thank you to, hello, hi mom, whatever.
Well, my daughter Yasmin.
Yeah.
She's probably going to be listening to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife, Josie. I got an amazing wife.
You got a beautiful family, man.
She's a great lady. So supportive. So
she's psyched.
Yeah, and just the whole climbing, all my friends in the climbing community and stuff that, have had my back. And I got a lot of climbing friends. They're just good people.
Yeah.
All my peeps.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for taking a big portion of your day and doing this with me. And
it was fun.
Yeah. And I look forward to having more conversations with you in the future. I definitely want to do a follow-up after the business is open for a little while. And I think I'm just stoked, man. I'm very stoked for you, and I'm very stoked to be a part of, in any part of this journey that I can help you with, I want to be involved. So.
All right.
All right, friends and enemies, lovers and haters, it is a wrap. That was the episode with Karl. The man is a great dude. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of history and understanding that no matter where you come from, what your background is, you can make an impact in the communities that mean the most to you. So if you've got a vision, you've got a dream, make it happen. I'm here to help. The rest of your community is here to help. Rock climbing and whatever it is that you're into If it's something that sparks joy in you and sparks joy in others, then I got your back. And remember, if whatever you're doing, if you're not suffering for it, you're not bleeding for it, is it really worth it at all? Because you got to ask yourself, if there's not a little bit of suffering, are you really sending?
Audio.